Okay, so I'm going to walk you through an example of how to find the linear equation for a given line of best fit. So let's assume that you have plotted the graph that's over here to the right. You've drawn your line of best fit with a ruler, and the question says to find the linear equation that best describes the line of best fit. So what's fortunate for us is that this line of best fit goes through exact points that we can see on the graph. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is find the slope, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to select this as my x1, y1, and I will select this point as my x2, y2. So that would be 5 minus 2, those are my y values, over 4 minus 1, those would be my x values, and I get 3 over 3, and I should not leave this as a fraction. Instead, I should calculate that out. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I have a slope of 1. So now I can go on to finding my linear equation. Remember that a linear equation looks like this, where y and x stay the same. M is our slope, and b is our y-intercept. And the y-intercept is the point on the graph where your line crosses the y-axis. The best thing you can do to figure that out, even if you see it on the graph, go ahead and calculate it just to be sure, is to use the point slope equation. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I can plug in my y1, which was 2, my slope, which was the number 1, x minus my x1, which is 1. So this is a really simple equation now. Sometimes you'll have more decimals and more complicated numbers, and that's okay. You still do the same process. So I distribute, and I am left with y minus 2 equals 1x minus 1, because 1 times x is 1x, and 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. The next thing I need to do is move this 2 away from the y, so those cancel out. I'm left with y equals 1x plus 1, because negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1. After I have my equation, I would check my graph to see if that makes sense. I have positive 1 as a slope, and that makes sense because my line is a positive slope. And I have 1 as the y-intercept, which makes sense because the line crosses the axes at positive 1. And that is your linear equation for the line of best fit using the calculations and not just counting it on the graph.